This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.
He's the founder, co-lead vocalist, lead guitarist, main songwriter of Alice in Chains, and he has a new solo album out called Brighten. He's coming to Irving Plaza here in NYC, April 5th. Jerry, you know, the last time we spoke was in our studio at Q1043 Radio here in New York when Alice in Chains played our iHeart Radio Theater for the Black Gives Way to Blue album. You know, I'll never forget that because, as I recall, it was supposed to be full-on electric, but then it became unplugged, which was fantastic. But also, as you guys were doing sound check, I don't know if you knew this, but Shakira walked in the room while you were doing sound check, which completely distracted me and the entire production crew.
That's a trip. I don't recall that. Okay.
She walked in. She was supposed to do an iHeart Radio Theater show, and everyone was like, "Okay, Shakira's in the house."
Did she? Did she run screaming from the room?
No. I think she was like really into you guys.
Oh, Shakira, that's cool, man.
Yeah, Shakira rocks. You know, she does her own like rock thing. But hey, you know, congrats on this excellent new solo album. This is so good. I've been playing it nonstop. 9 tracks on the album. One thing I noticed though right away, your first solo album was called Boggy Depot. Your second was called Degradation Trip with volumes 1 and 2. But this new one, title-wise anyway, it's sort of like the polar opposite. It's called Brighten.
Yeah, you know, I had that song, and it was one of the songs that I demoed early in the process, and I thought, you know, I just felt pretty special about it. You know, there's something really special about this song. And as I started demoing things, I think I did a tone first and Brighten in order, I think, and then came up with a couple more, and really early on in the process, Tyler and I both kind of looked at each other and were like, Brighten, dude, is a great title. You know, I think when I showed him the lyrics to that song, and he's like, that's the title right there, dude. You know, and I'm like, that's exactly what I was thinking, man. So let's just call it that. So luckily that was taken care of. It's funny, like the title of a record is absolutely for us. I don't know if it's the same for other artists, but I assume that it is. I've had a few conversations with some other folks about this too. The title of your record is like the absolute last thing that you come up with. You do this great work and you're feeling really good about it, and it's like, okay, now what the hell do we call this thing? You know, so but it does have a little bit of that feel, and you know, a word that keeps popping up as I've been talking to a lot of people about it is open. You know, it's a very open sounding record, and I think it's aptly titled, and I love that song. Brighten, it's awesome. It's gonna be a really fun song to play live.
Oh yeah, we can't wait for that. That's the one we've been playing on the show the last few weeks, and you know, I have to mention this. I saw you posted a very entertaining album release announcement on your Instagram, dressed in your Halloween costume. Now, who was that? Who is that guy?
I have no idea. I assume it's from some sort of horror movie somewhere. And I was asking a few folks. I went to see Danzig Sings Elvis the night after that post, and I wore that. That's what I got that mask for. Yeah, it was just a $20-$30 mask, but it was very effective. I got a lot of pop out of $30.
Oh yes, you did, and the laugh at the end was like fantastic. You should have put some reverb on the laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could have been. I could have been a Batman villain for sure.
How do you know that one of your songs is an Alice in Chains song, or a solo song, or a song that maybe is recorded by somebody else? Is it just like a quick think in your mind right as it happens, where you just know right away where the song ends up and with who?
It's just, you know, it really just depends on if it happens in the process. You know, if we're collectively in that work mode and somebody brings the song in, or I'm a notorious demoer before I ever even get in a room with people that I'm working with, just so that I know that I'm coming in with a lot of strong material. So you don't want to waste a bunch of time trying to, you know, there's some beauty to it, starting with absolutely nothing and going, okay, what do we do? We've done records like that. Jar of Flies is an example of a record that was done in like 6 or 7 days, and we didn't have anything together really other than maybe a little bit of an idea or two before we rolled in there. Mostly it's a collection of ideas and a cultivating of them. So really it's the people that you're making them with. We've made all sorts of records, from Facelift to Sap to Dirt to Jar of Flies. So Alice can go anywhere. Any of these songs could have worked if we were working together and recording together, but we weren't. I was with some other folks. The best way I can describe it is for me, the game remains the same. It's playing the same game. I'm just, I'm on a different field with a different team.
You just reminded me that I have a promotional copy of I guess it was at Columbia Records that Jar of Flies came out on, or Sony Music, and I still have that CD with the flies in it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a 30-year-old dead fly I have in there, I think.
That was a great design on that. We've worked with some really great artists. Rocky Shank did a lot of the early Alice in Chains stuff, and we had a really supportive record company that would kind of go with us wherever we wanted to go artistically. And we had a lot of good ideas ourselves. I think Sean actually came up with the idea to put the flies in the spine.
It's so great.
Yeah.
Well, playing on this album with you, some recognizable names like Greg Puciato, Tyler Bates, and Paul McCartney's drummer, Abe Laboriel Jr. So I know he recorded with you remotely, but still, with Abe, were you like, yo, man, can you just tell us some stories?
It's funny. We met virtually and on the phone. Joe Barisi put us together, and I started talking to him about doing this, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm into it. Let's do it. Send the tracks over," and having him involved was cool. And we did the video. That was the first time we met in person. Was at the video shoot.
Right.
I called him up and I said, "Hey man, we're doing a video for this song, and I know it's weird, but we're gonna shoot this thing, and I would love it if the guys that I recorded the song with would be part of it." And he's like, "Absolutely, I'm there." And so I'm standing there looking at everybody, and nobody had played together yet. We were all standing. We were all standing. I'm like, "Hey, great to get the band back together for the first time." But we did have a little chat about McCartney, yeah, for sure. And he how could you not enjoy working with that guy?
Gosh, he could probably just go on all night and tell stories.
Yeah. Well, Abe's so talented, man. And he's got a really, really amazing feel, and he's such a versatile musician, and everybody on this record everybody put their heart and soul in it. All of the musicians have their own bands and their own name. And, it was an honor to have everybody included and feel like they wanted to be there. And I think that translates in the music. I really feel like it's an alive, organic record.
And we've got to mention some of the other guys, including Duff McKagan, who plays bass on several tracks, and he even produced you playing bass on the song.
He did.
Siren Song.
Yep, he did. Duff, an old friend of mine, and he's a guy I've always admired. And we've jammed together in one form or another. When we first started doing gigs again in Alice, he joined us on the road for a lot of gigs, playing guitar and just hanging out with us and giving us support and being part of us getting going again. That meant a lot to me, and his band was really inspirational to Alice in Chains when we were forming, and they were kind of breaking and they were something new, coming out of the old, and sitting down and playing with him is a kind of a awe-inspiring experience. He's so quick and so talented, and he can go anywhere you want to go. And every once in a while, he'll surprise you. And he listened to the demo bass on Siren Song, and he's like, "Man, you shouldn't change that. That's a really good bass line." I'm like, okay, well, show me how to. I'll do that, but show me how to play it so I'm not sounding like a guitar player playing bass. And so he gave me a couple tips, but but it was great. He only intended to do like a song or two, and but once I got him over in the seat and we finished the song or two we were working on, I'm like, how about this one? And wait, how about this one? So before I knew it, he knocked out like 5 or 6 songs in like 2 days, so.
Jerry Cantrell is with us. The new solo album called Brighten, coming to Irving Plaza April 5th. You know what? I was really happy to hear a pedal steel guitar on this album.
Yeah, Michael Rozon. That's a friend of Tyler Bates. That's how I met Michael. And I did a couple of shows in LA, 2 nights at a place called the Pico Union Project in December, and a lot of the players on this record appeared with me on that stage, and it was kind of cool to build that camaraderie, and after playing with Michael in particular, I felt like, man, that's got to be a presence on this record, because a lot of the material really lent itself to that sort of voice. And I also felt that keys would have a prominent role on this record as well. Jordan Lewis, who appears on the record, also did those shows with me. And Paul Figueroa, my engineer and producer, introduced me to Vincent Jones, who kind of came in late in the process with Abe and Duff, and played some fantastic keys and string arrangements. That arrangement he did for Goodbye is just like heartbreaking. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that. It's Elton John's song Goodbye from Madman Across the Water. Your cover of that song closes the album. I think Elton's Greatest Hits was one of the first, if not the first, CD I ever owned. And I think that might be your first album, right? Ever?
It was my first album. My dad gave me that. I would go over to my friend's house and listen to their albums, but I didn't really have one of my own. And my dad, he's a lifelong Army dog, and so I think he was stationed in Korea for a while, and he came back to visit. And he had this big cardboard box full of country records and stuff, and a few records that probably he didn't want. And one of them was Elton John's Greatest Hits, and I remember him holding it up and saying, "Hey, you want this?" He says, "I'm gonna throw it away," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take it." And I was already well into Elton John at that point, so that meant a lot to me, getting my first record from my dad, and the fact that it was Elton, because I was already into Elton.
I think it's interesting that people like you and your music, and even, James Hetfield and Metallica, hard rock bands, and of course, countless others, really count Elton's music and Bernie's lyrics as really influential to them.
Sure. Well, you have to think, like, for guys James's age and my age, James is a couple of years older than me. I'm 57. So I imagine he's probably 50. I'm 55. He's probably 57 or something like that. So we're kids of the 60s, and we were born in the 60s and grew up in the 70s. So what was playing in the 70s, we probably moved into rock toward the later part of the 70s and into the 80s, and then started making it ourselves. But that's what that was the music that was on the radio,
Yeah.
Fleetwood Mac, Elton John, like all, there's so many great songwriters, and also a real healthy, diverse mix of styles, R&B, there was disco, I grew up with a couple of country fans, and my mom and dad, there was like dance and swing and stuff. My grandmother watched Lord's Welk every week, and so that was on in our house, and then when I got a guitar in my hands, that's when everything changed. That's when I was sort of gravitating toward more guitar heavy stuff.
And we got to mention Elton played on the Alice in Chains album.
He did.
And song Black Gives Way to Blue. So, and you actually sent him the demo for this cover of Goodbye, right?
I did. It's really interesting. As I've been talking about this, kind of looking back at it, I didn't intend this to be the case, but I look at a song like Black Gives Way to Blue, and the fact that Elton was involved in that and wanted to be a part of it, and what that song meant was a fresh start for the band, and also saying goodbye to our dear friend Lane.
Yeah.
And it's such a emotionally potent song, and it also closes the record, and it's only a couple minutes long. It's really similar to a song like Goodbye, and so I think there's connections there kind of psychically.
He's a huge music fan too, right? Like Elton's just absolutely way into like everything.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you mentioned like it's interesting that Hetfield or I would be into Elton, and it's really not too unusual from our end that Elton would still be into all sorts of kind of music too. It's like, we're all fans of music, whatever style speaks to you, and probably through your life things change. Maybe you start getting into jazz when you didn't listen to it before, or maybe you go through phases of like maybe your high school years were one thing and it kind of morphs into something else. It's a language we all share, and it kind of it becomes like the soundtrack to your life. A song will come on the radio and it instantly takes me to a place in time. Instantly, like, okay, I was in 8th grade. I was in Pennsylvania. My dad was out of town, and invited some friends over, and we got into his moonshine. Yeah, and we were listening to.
Right. Yeah. Jerry Cantrell is with us. The new album, Brighten, Irving Plaza, April 5th. We're all going to be there. New Alice in Chains music possibly on the horizon after this tour.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna spend most of this year supporting this record. Although I think Alice is, I was just talking with the guys yesterday. We don't have anything in stone right now, but we definitely were talking about maybe doing some shows next year too. So you might get a little of both.
Nice. I've been playing, as I mentioned, Brighten from the new album on this show for a few weeks now, but I want to play the opening track, Atone. And you had the idea for this song for a while, I guess, right?
Yeah, the bare bones of it, the guitar riff and the chorus idea were the two things that I had, but it never was in the form where it was really good enough to be what it is today. And it's funny, you never know when that's going to happen or when you're going to have time to come up with something. I will hold on to ideas until I crack the code. And that one took me a while, but not really unusual. Actually, there's usually a track or two on every record that is a couple records back, that I've got the riff, I got the chorus, but I got no B part. I got no middle eight, it just, what is it? You just keep at it. And until you crack the code. I'm glad I finally did, because Atone's a killer song.
It sure is. Jerry Cantrell is with us. The new solo album is Brighten, April 5th next year at Irving Plaza here in New York City. So, Jerry, I will say happy holidays right now, because we'll see you next year at Irving Plaza. And fantastic new album, man. Really playing the crap out of it is so good. And we look forward to seeing you at Irving Plaza. So thank you very much.
I appreciate the support, and thank you for having me on.
This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.